so we can make the most of our time. So Dr. Greenberg, take it away.
All right, thanks, Brittany. Hi, I'm Michael Greenberg. I'm the moderator for the sort of technical skills panel today. We have a slate of 4 panelists, but with us right now, 2 panelists who we will introduce briefly. So we have Yevgenios Konoropoulos and Asta Mehta are here with us to talk about technical skills in the PhD. Maybe we can start by telling a little bit about ourselves, saying something like your university, maybe where you got your PhD and what you do. So I'll start. I'm at Stevens Institute of Technology, having just moved here from 6 years at Pomona College, where you don't do PhD students, and now you do PhD students. I got my PhD at Penn, and I work on programming languages and systems. Evgenios, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So my name is Yevgenios Konoropoulos. I did my PhD at Brown University, and then I did my postdoc at UC Berkeley. I'm working in computer security and applied cryptography. Specifically, I'm looking at problems that have a little bit of an algorithmic background, but also some systems applications, so very practical kind of theoretical aspects. And I'm looking at how, typically when we talk about cryptography, then we just encrypt a certain message and we think that's the end of it, but there are a lot of things going on in the background on how you access this encrypted information and what might be leaked from this information. So I'm working in encrypted databases, and I'm at George Mason University. I joined a few months ago. Thank you.
Nice. Asta.
Hi everyone, my name is Asta Mehta. I'm an assistant professor at University of British Columbia, Vancouver in Canada right now. I moved here just this year after completing my PhD at Max Planck Institute for Software Systems in Germany. I broadly work in systems and security, and I generally like to build systems, and my current focus is on applications related to data security and privacy. So if you're interested in anything related to, for example, cloud confidential computing in the cloud, or side channel security, or any other related topics in system security, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to chat with you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I think some of the other panelists will arrive. I think there's some scheduling stuff going on. No worries. We can get started with what I think is the most upvoted question in the Discord right now, which is sort of a meta question, not about developing the skills themselves, but sort of how beneficial are these technical skills that the PhD develops for you. So let's give them the biased answer that a bunch of academics give about their PhD's academic skills.
Yeah,
let's say it is.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I would say it actually is quite helpful if you have strong technical skills to start with, because then you actually basically hit the ground running, right? You have the skills to do the work. You're going to learn a lot of things about how to identify problems, how to scope out the problems, how to design the solutions. And once that part is done, if you already are good with certain kinds of technical skills, like say programming or doing evaluation, that can be a great plus, right? Because that part you already know, you can do that quickly. It doesn't mean that you have to know everything beforehand before joining PhD. Of course, these skills can also be picked up during the PhD, and especially if you are part of a group where there are other senior students to mentor you, to sort of help you learn the ropes of doing research, that can certainly help you to get all those skills. But if you have something from beforehand, some amount of, say, industry experience where you've learned, how to maintain good quality code, how to do testing, and all those kinds of things, that can really help you in your PhD as well. I mean, even though you're not going to be writing, say, production quality code, but, you still have to write certain amount of code, for example, and, believe it or not, invariably closer to deadline, the chances of failures are high. And, some of those things can be avoided if you have been at least using some good practices throughout your project.
So Evgenios had something to say, but I want to interject to introduce one of our other panelists, Yalong Yang, who just joined. Sorry about the schedule mistakes. To briefly introduce yourself, maybe you can say where you are now, where you got your PhD, and the general area you work in. And then I'll restate the question when you're done.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Michael. So my name is Yalong Yang. I'm currently a new faculty member at Virginia Tech Computer Science. So I got my PhD from Monash University, Australia, so very far away country. And I did my postdoc at Harvard before I joined Virginia Tech. So my research is basically about visualization, VR, AR, and HCI. So it's very technical focus actually. So that will be a very interesting question for me to answer. So I really think it depends on what areas you are looking at. If you are looking at like VR, AR visualization, like what I did, I strongly prefer students to have some technical skills beforehand, because without those skills, actually you cannot do nothing related to my research topic. However, I'm not expecting everyone just have a very strong technical background, because this is also myself, it's not the case. I studied to learn VR AR in my second year of my PhD. And considering the entire period of PhD, it will be like 5 years or 6 years even. So like invest like half a year to learn skills is absolutely nothing. So, but I strongly think like for computer science topic, you have to be really good at programming to achieve a successful PhD, at least in my topic. But there are also a lot of, because PhD is not about computer science, they have so many topics. So it really depends on what you want to work on. If you want to be more, I don't know what other examples I can come up with now, but I think there are topics you are more, pay more attention on the softer skills, and many more. So it really depends on what you want to do, I guess.
Nice. So Evgenius, maybe you can share your perspective on these sort of pre-PhD skills, and then we can talk for a moment after about the sort of the dividends of those skills, how those skills get used after the PhD.
So currently I'm recruiting PhD students. So I got a few students who have. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted Evgenius to get a chance on the first question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so I think that it's kind of hard to find students that have exactly the technical skills that we need for the projects that are running in our labs. And that's understandable because it's such a kind of niche and kind of state-of-the-art technology that it's really hard to find these students. What I think might count is to have either kind of a letter or some kind of a recommendation letter from somebody that knows the area, or you have taken a class that is very relevant to the things that I'm working on. So this would be a great kind of signal towards some kind of set of skills that can be developed further on. But I think that most of us, of course, if you have an actual application, that's a great asset to have. But this is really hard to achieve. So I don't think there are. It's not like a minimum requirement. It would be great, but yeah, that doesn't happen that often.
Okay, so to follow up, I think some people were interested in hearing about the use of these, like how beneficial or useful these skills were after the PhD. So maybe it would be worthwhile to talk a little bit, sort of what are the technical skills you think the PhD teaches, and how have those been beneficial after the fact?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that when we talk about technical skills for a PhD, it's not only the actual coding or a certain technology or a certain protocol. It's also about thinking like a researcher, being able to break down a problem that is very vague and up in the air and kind of break it down into components that you can study and analyze, and the skill of kind of reading papers from other people or kind of white papers from products and understanding what they are doing right, what they're doing wrong, where you can improve. So this set of skills is something that is fantastic, I think, for the job market later on, regardless of whether you are going to the industry or academia. So this kind of thinking like a researcher and being able to pin down a certain problem, I think is a fantastic skill that you acquired through your PhD.
All right, Asta Yalong, thoughts on that?
Sure. I think, again, it depends on what you do after your PhD. I think for my case, like for VR AR, there are big companies looking for VR AR research scientist and research engineer. So if you want to do this kind of job, you definitely have to equip with those kind of skills, and you have to be experts in this area. If you want to be a professor, there are a lot of skills you learn from PhD will be super helpful, like what Evgenius just talked about, like the research skills. They are so essential for you to supervise your student, to expand your research network, to build your research empire. So there are so many. I think they are just very, very useful.
Yeah, and in addition to what has already been said, generally, I mean, you get the technical skills to tackle problems. You learn, get that confidence to be able to even work on problems, or at least have a take at it even independently without requiring someone to tell you what to do, how to proceed, what your next steps are. You also learn to generally, take in ideas from other related topics or other work that has been done around you and learn how to synthesize those or find out how to, say, combine those in creative ways. And that can be helpful both in industry, and of course it would be useful in academia, but even in industry, you want to design, say, some new system, for example, then there are already a lot of ideas that might have been discussed, tried out in different places, right? You learn to first think about those things systematically and then come with solutions, and not just start, say, programming in an ad hoc way. So that's certainly a useful skill to have, which you can get through a PhD.
Nice. So please.
Sorry, just one quick thing to add on. Just think about in my head is like, one thing I felt about the technical skills is usually you cannot really learn from the classes, which is a pity. In your PhD, I think it's more about self-learning, and potentially your supervisors can give you guidance on how to learn certain stuff. But to be honest, I barely learned anything from the classes I took during my PhD. And also for certain topics, like for example, like VR, AR, a lot of universities just do not offer such courses. So you have to find the tutorials and things online for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Evgeny, do you have something to add?
No, just to piggyback on that one, technical skills you can find from, what I found useful, at least as a PhD student at the time, was to find classes from other professors around the world and see what they teach. And some of the kind of the selection of topics, of papers, of techniques was very helpful to develop my own toolbox of technical skills. So that's another tip that you can use.
Yeah, totally. So I think a model people often talk about the PhD is an apprenticeship. And like the analogy I like to make is to sort of like woodworking, right? So there's all of this sort of hidden knowledge that doesn't exist in any book. And I suppose it's a technical skill, but you acquire this by being around your advisor and working closely with them and being around other people doing similar things. You pick it up on the job in the shop. One of these skills, it seems sort of a theme. So the next panel is about research skills. So I think everybody sort of said, well, you learn this sort of higher order thinking. This feels related. One concrete skill that I think a PhD teaches very well is writing. So I'd love to hear your general thoughts on writing, and then maybe contrasting the forms of writing people might have had in their undergrad and the kind of technical writing demanded by the PhD.
So is the question like how the two are different?
I think the question was talk about writing, if we're going to be honest. But I think sort of the technical writing in the PhD is a very particular skill, and I think addressing how that's taught would be interesting.
Right. So during my PhD program, we used to have sort of these soft skills development courses where there were specific instructors who were really skilled with teaching academic writing skills. And that's what and there were also resources. There are resources available, which, I think we'll be happy to share with people over here, about how to practice academic writing. There are concepts related to, how to structure your sentences, to paragraphs, to sections in a paper, or in different kinds of writing artifacts, right? And those are sort of the skills that you can start learning. Of course, then, how the general style of writing or the flair of writing, that is something that evolves again with practice. And that's something that you learn on the job, probably picking up a bit based on the style of your advisors and all those kinds of things. But it's certainly a very, very different thing than what you might have ever done in your undergrad. I mean, if I look back at the statement of purpose that I might have written right after my undergrad while applying for grad school, probably looks really very bizarre at this stage. Since then, the skills that I picked up during the grad school have really helped to improve the writing. So this, by the way, is a challenge that might appear not just for non-native English speakers. I've heard many, many native English speakers also say that academic writing or technical writing is actually not that easy, right? So one of the one of the apprehensions that often non-native English speakers have is like, because they're not very good with English, right? They also feel generally underconfident. I'm sort of addressing a side point, right? But they generally feel underconfident in, say, research groups and meetings and so on. But, that's one thing I would like to say, like, probably others have similar challenges as well. And so that's something that you shouldn't be worrying about.
Yeah, I want to just echo, as a native English speaker and someone who thought he was a good writer before he attended grad school, there's a lot to learn. It's very challenging. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a native speaker. I lived my whole life in Greece and I moved here for my PhD. But definitely it is very, very different. So I think one word that comes to mind when you talk about technical writing is distill. You have to distill your motivation, you have to distill your techniques, you have to distill everything to a very concise and clear message that can get through in your own paper, because unfortunately you're not there to present things physically and kind of have nice gestures and smile and kind of engage people. So your writing should be on point, should be precise, and you should also learn how to cover all angles. So you have to teach yourself to think a little bit adversarially and think how somebody would criticize this writing and try to kind of cover it and explain things and foresee problems before they appear. So technical writing is very, very different from any book or kind of article that you might read online.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in real quick because this is the one thing. So my undergraduate degree is in English literature, and I spent many, many years writing and like have won awards for my writing. And this is the one thing that I found was a superpower when I got to grad school, because literally no one else can. So I'm here to be like, I'm the exception that proves the rule. And so everyone feels this way, except for weirdos who get their PhDs in computer science from a degree in English literature. So just wanted to say, what everyone is saying is absolutely on point.
Cool. Yeah, great. I think from my experience, like writing a research paper, I think the most important part is actually storytelling. It's really about the flow of your work. Sometimes you really read the things and you found that makes sense to you, but it does not make sense to other people. So how to identify the problem is really challenging there. That's my thought there. So I think one thing I really suggest my student to do, especially at the beginning, is to find model papers from the field and just to imitate from them, to learn from them. And there is no need to be creative on writing style, on writing structure. Your creativity is actually in your work. So I think you just follow the other way, how other people write will be a really good start point. Of course, you can get much better later, but I think just follow what other people wrote will be a good start point.
Yeah, totally agreed. A lot of people talking about narrative here. I think that's really very true. The point maybe to make there is that there's different layers of technical skill, and I think we talked a little bit about how non-native speakers might worry about this sort of micro, like sentence or word level thing, but part of the PhD's technical skill here is teaching you to also think at these higher layers of, how am I crafting my narrative so that reviewers will understand the right things at the right time and not understand the wrong things at the right time. So how do you set people up for success in that way? A very real thing. There have not been many other new questions in the Discord, so feel free to add them. I want to maybe, because we have about 10 minutes left, we can try something that's a little summative. What is the balance of technical skill versus other work in the PhD that you feel like you've experienced? I know experiences vary widely between subdiscipline and personality, right? You come in with different backgrounds, so everyone's going to be different. But what's the balance between technical skill learning, and other work?
I can get started if you don't mind. So I'm thinking about, from my experience, actually, if you are not going to switch topics every day, you actually are going to invest a lot of time to learning the skills at the beginning. And after you gain a certain level of technical skills, what I'm talking mainly is about the programming skills. You do not need to learn them again later in your PhD. So actually, I think at the first year of your PhD probably is the time you really spend time with learning those skills. And later you will try to learn other skills we talk about, like the softer skills and the academic writing and stuff. That's my feeling.
Yeah, so for me as well, the experience is somewhat similar, not necessarily that it might continue the same way going forward in my group. A lot of my work has involved, deep systems engineering and sort of comprehensive experimental evaluation, which does take up a lot of time. Even learning how to design your experiments is an important part, and sometimes those things are quite challenging, particularly when you're working with like hardware, which is pretty unruly these days. So a lot of time in the kind of research I do does go towards, actual systems work. We spend time on writing. It's not always writing a paper right from day one, but in the group we do write up, for example, design documents about how we are designing a solution, scoping out the problem, coming up with a design for solution. These are all also in smaller components that help to teach you writing skills, for example. So even though we may not be writing up a paper right from the beginning, those smaller documents that we are writing up, they still are good places to practice writing skills. We frequently also keep doing, for example, presentations in the group and in the larger group within the department, whether it is a reading group or whether you're presenting your work even while it is still evolving. Those are, other aspects that help you teach you other kinds of soft skills, for example, presentations and, how to have a critical discussion. So there are all these avenues for learning skills. And there is not a fixed balance. It keeps evolving depending also on the nature of the research, plus what stage of that research you are in, and also at what stage in your grad program you are in. Of course, towards the later part of your program, you do end up having more time. You have already learned up the initial technical skills. Now you have more time. Possibly you also have junior students to work with and mentor them who might be doing the technical work, and that's when you get to focus on, say, other kinds of things like writing and so on.
Evgeny, do you have any quick thoughts on that? There's some questions in the Discord I want to get to, but if you have a quick thought, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I think it's, in terms of allocating the effort in your PhD, it's definitely, in my opinion, 50% the technical skills and 50% develop your own research taste. I think we kind of undersell this in academia, but I think it's very, very important. If you want to train students that will become potentially pioneers or visionaries in the area, you want them to have their own kind of perception and understanding of the field, where the field is going. And this type of deep thinking is not, maybe we don't as academia don't do a great job always fostering students think like this. So I think that's another 50% that we should try, and students should try themselves to think things deeply and through of where we are going.
Nice. So there's a couple questions in the chat I wanted to address, both really about background, right? People expressing concerns about going in. So on the one hand, one person, Justin, talks about concerns about math in the PhD program, and then another asks sort of like, what's the experience, sort of, I think, with the eye of technical skills, but more generally, of joining straight after a bachelor's degree versus after a master's. And I want to, before letting the panelists answer, I want to interject. In the United States, there is almost no reason to get a master's separately before going to get a PhD. It just doesn't work that way here. They are separate terminal degrees, and you should, if you want to get a PhD, do not waste your time with a master's. Go, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go directly to PhD jail. So a lot of people, I think in other countries it works differently, and I think that's great. But if you're coming to the States and you want to do a PhD, you just do the PhD. There's no master's prep. There's no reason to do it. Right. So exactly. So Europe and other places it works differently, but everyone here is a professor in the States, at least everyone on the panel. So like for all of us, don't do the master's first. But okay, backing up from that, the questions are sort of like, what is the experience like? So if you come in and you want to study something, but maybe you don't have all the background for it, how does that work in the PhD?
So I just want to clarify, by the way, I'm in Canada. We have something like at least UBC, we have somewhat like a mix of Europe and the North American program. So we do have a direct PhD program. We have the master's program, and even though often students are encouraged to start with the master's program, we also have what is called as a PhD track program. So you do start as a master's student, but after the first year, you decide to move into PhD if you're interested. But you have that 1 year leeway to help you decide whether you want to end with master's or go into the PhD program. But anyways, to answer the question about, what if you don't have that background, or how do you cope up with that, right? So I think, yeah, so if you have the willingness to learn and you have the enthusiasm to learn up topics, then that might be enough, right? I mean, it's okay if you don't have all the skills. There's also something that I said at the beginning. It's okay if you don't have all the skills, right? As long as you're willing to learn and you're capable of learning and grasping things quickly, that might be okay, right? You can learn on the job, and as somebody also said, right? You can learn things on the job, on the fly, not necessarily waiting to finish topics in classes and so on. You can learn from your peers, you can learn from other students within your research group, as well as say in the wider department. You can ask them questions, you can discuss topics with them, and that's also a way to learn up skills. So I think that's, if you have that ability to pick up things on the fly, then you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I don't care if my students have a master degree or bachelor degree. I don't care. I care a little bit more about whether they have some research experience that will be beneficial to get you started, because the entire research pipeline is not about, it's not like I said in the Discord chat. Basically, it's not about doing a final project for a course. It's basically is a very iterative and open-ended process. So you need to get used to that. And sometimes people will get really frustrated because they don't know where they need to go. But this is the nature of research. So I think they need to adjust their feeling, their attitude towards that direction. And also, like, if they don't have any research experience, I think it's still okay, because there are what I usually do with those kind of students is I will give them a test project or kind of easy to start project to get them understand the pipeline a little bit more. So once they did that, I think they have enough research experience for their PhD, and they just need to do the work.
Yeah, to also kind of play devil's advocate here, I think I've seen some people getting a master, if they cannot get to the PhD program that they really want. I've seen people getting into a master's program in the US and then transitioning to a PhD. But if you think that you have the resume, the CV, and the skills to apply directly to a PhD program, definitely do that if you want to do research. So, there are multiple ways to reach the same end goal. But in terms of technical skills and coming to a PhD with technical skills, I think that the advice that I'm trying to use is the one that I got from my postdoc mentor, which is look for potential. So as long as you can demonstrate potential to the faculty that read your application, that will be a fantastic signal that we will take into consideration while we are trying to kind of constrain the pool of applicants that we consider for the offers.
Okay. I think we need to wrap up now. It's 11 o'clock by my timer. One thing I want to add that I think didn't get mentioned about the master's PhD divide is that at many programs in the States, it is possible to leave the PhD after typically 2 years and sufficient coursework with a master's. So it's not even an either or thing. It's not like it's a PhD or nothing option. So this is like actually a very common thing. Lots of people do this. I have many friends from my program who went and did something similar. It is, I think, broadly considered unethical to apply to a PhD program and plan on taking the consolation masters, as it is called in these programs. But if that's the thing you need to do, if you go to a PhD program and discover it's not right for you, that's great. you can leave with a master's, and I think that ends up working well for folks. With that, I think we should thank our panelists.
Sorry, I
Oh,
just
sorry, Emma.
want to jump in real quick for that one, because I actually give people the opposite advice. Just apply for the PhD no matter what, because usually what ends up happening is you might find out you like research and you stick with the PhD, even if you thought, whatever, I'll just leave with a master's. And so it is very important to remember that like there are two parties here. And we know exactly what we're doing when we admit PhD students. We know that this is how things can turn out. You do not owe us that. Now, do not lie to us and come in and say you want to do like machine learning. So you want to do programming languages and then like switch to machine, so then actually take machine learning classes and whatever. Like that's not good. That's not a good relationship building thing. But like you don't have to believe in your like your inner being that this is what is for you. You can be like, I don't know, maybe I do just want a master's. That's fine. We are perfectly aware that this is a thing that happens. And so do not worry about that part.
That's right. Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So we should wrap up because I think we are now 2 minutes over. Let's thank our
Yeah, no
excellent
worries.
panelists. Very
Good
hard to
job,
hear with the
guys.
mic.
And thank our phenomenal moderator. Fantastic job keeping the
Thanks.
conversation going. To all of our panelists and moderators so far today. So thank you guys so much. I'm okay with things running over when